This is it, guys. It's finally time to get our lock on.
Ooh, that's a big lock, alright. I just don't trust that guy.
Hey guys, Mark here from Ace Card Gaming, and welcome back to Revisited, the series where we've been looking back to Sonic's origins. See what I did there? Paying our respects, and casting a critical eye over the games that kicked Nintendo's ass, put Sega on the map, and sent a blue wave all around the world, where anyone knew just how awesome this Sonic the Hedgehog was. In the previous episode, I covered the first half of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, carrying out a deep dive analysis on the content housed at the tippy top of this Tower of Power, otherwise known as Sonic 3. And this episode will serve as part 2 of that same retrospective. And much like the beautiful chunky slab of plastic perfection this video represents, will nicely round out and complete an experience. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, what's your problem? But seriously, if you haven't, you should probably check it out, as I may make points in that video that you feel I overlooked here. Special stages, elemental shields, shampoo bottles, and all the story and zone analysis from Angel Island through to Launch Base is covered in that episode, so be sure to check it out if you haven't already. To not do so would be the same as being handed the Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles cartridges, and not connecting them, just playing them separately. And who wants to be that guy? No save system, no Super Emeralds, superfluous removal and blowing of cartridges? No thanks, crazy. Stack those babies and hook them directly into my veins. In part 2 we'll be picking up where we left off. Sonic had just foiled another of Robotnik's attempts to launch his Death Egg at Launch Base, and Knuckles ended up taking a bath after briefly displaying his true power against Sonic. I know. I probably ragged on him enough for this in part 1 already. But seriously, how do you go from this to this? And with Knuckles now playable, we'll finally be able to discuss his unique and awesome abilities, as well as his personal story arc and how the game is tailored differently for him. But we'll get onto that a little later in the video. For now, we'll be staying with Sonic. But just before we jump into all the good stuff, if you happen to find yourself enjoying the video, please consider dropping a like, subscribing to the channel, and all that good stuff with the bell icon. I cover loads of Sonic and gaming stuff on here, so there's always a chance there'll be something you'll enjoy. Any support you guys show for the channel really helps, and I can't put into words just how much it's appreciated by me. You guys have been awesome, and it's your support that keeps me going on this roller coaster ride that is YouTube. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get started, shall we? With the launch of Robotnik's Death Egg at Launch Base once again foiled by Sonic, his chunky mustachioed likeness crashes down onto Angel Island once again, this time landing in a volcanic crater. Tails airlifts Sonic safely from the crash, and the pair now find themselves in the aptly named Mushroom Hill. That strong emphasis on storytelling we were treated to in part 1 is still very much alive and well in the and Knuckles portion of the game, as straight away Sonic runs into Knuckles yet again, but with one big exception. This time we have the jump on him. Sonic lays low, watching him acting suspiciously as he closes a door concealing a secret passageway. Sonic has been running around this strange island for some time now, yet is still no closer to understanding what exactly is going on here. But Robotnik is involved, and this strange red Sandslash seems to be in cahoots with him, so whatever it is, it can't be good. Once Knuckles leaves, not suspecting for a second he was being watched, Sonic reactivates the switch to open the passage and takes a look around. Inside, it appears at first that all there is to find is a special stage ring, but this special stage ring isn't like any you've found before. This one is pulsing a bunch of different colours, and if Big Red was trying to keep it hidden, it must be important. Once we dive in, it quickly becomes obvious why this giant ring looked so different, as rather than being simply warped to a special stage or granted 50 rings, we instead find ourselves at a mysterious shrine in a crystal palace, with huge gem-encrusted columns sprawling out into the background. And that mysterious music that starts to play really gives the sense that this is a very special place. If you took the time to collect the Chaos Emeralds in the first half of the game, these new souped up special stage rings now serve as secret entrances to the Hidden Palace, home of the Master Emerald. When we were introduced to this huge magnificent emerald for the first time, we see it resting in a giant nest of crystals, perched above 7 smaller empty shrines. But before we have a chance to question what exactly this place is, or why Knuckles was so eager to keep it hidden, in what appears to be a reaction to the presence of the Master Emerald, the Chaos Emeralds begin to float up and away from Sonic, spinning wildly in the air before suddenly disappearing. Just as they do, 7 beams of light shoot down from above, and each of the 7 smaller shrines are populated with dull grey gems. These look strangely familiar to the Master Emerald, just much smaller and zapped of their energy. I can't quite describe just how much this short sequence blew my mind as a kid. All that time I spent painstakingly gathering the Chaos Emeralds again after they were stolen, learning the rules for a brand new set of special stages, and seeking out their hidden entrances all over the island. And in 10 seconds, these mystical rainbow nuggets had slipped through my grasp again. And look, we all know that in a practical sense, this was the dev's way of removing the I win button that is supersonic from the player. A way of preventing you from just blitzing through the entire latter half of the game with ease. If, of course, you don't just pull a sneaky and dodge these wacky glowing disco rings to hold on to supersonic for the entire game. But on your first time, I can't imagine very many people, if any, could resist the urge to jump into the unknown here and explore all the secrets this island has to offer. And even as just a crude instrument added to moderate the game's difficulty, even this was integrated into the story with such elegance and attention to detail that as a kid, I believed without a doubt in my mind that this was the plan for the story all along. Mechanics be damned, this shit just all made sense, and the implications for the story and its characters are all there plain as day for the world to see. In stark contrast to the violent way Sonic was separated from the Chaos Emeralds when he first landed on Angel Island, this phenomenon is far more gentle in nature. The Master Emerald may seem like a big chunk of inanimate rock just sitting there, but believe me, nothing could be further from the truth. And while alive may not be the best word for it, there is definitely a sentience, an awareness to this beautiful stone. Sonic has been through the wars since he landed on the island, torched by Robotnik, tricked by Knuckles, and victim to many of the island's traps and defenses. Anyone could get the impression he wasn't welcome here, but things seem to have changed now. And when Sonic is unwittingly warped to the Emerald Chamber within Hidden Palace, the Master Emerald seems to sense something in him. Something about this brave, determined, and pure-hearted hero sees it take a chance on him as the one person who might be able to stop all the terrible things threatening this island's very existence. Everything is out of balance here, and even those who are supposed to watch over this amazing place are not living up to their duties. So, whether out of desperation, or for some other reason only it can understand, the Master Emerald turns to an outsider for help. The Master Emerald possesses the ability to calm the raging power of the Chaos Emeralds, nullifying their power whenever it's abused. But here, in this moment, with Sonic standing before it, it instead chooses to amplify their power, transforming them into their dormant super forms, leaving Sonic with one final set of tasks to perform in order to prove himself worthy to the Master Emerald and earn the ultimate power. There are now 7 additional blue sphere stages you need to complete in order to restore life to the 7 dormant super emeralds. And while it may seem kinda lame that you have to go through all this again, trust me, it's so friggin' worth it. Before playing this game, I would have struggled to suggest any sensible way of improving upon Sonic's super form. Sonic becomes a golden ball of speed and power, the pure chaos energy causing his quills to resist gravity and point upwards. At full speed, he now levitates above the ground, and is somehow immeasurably faster and stronger than he already was. How can you improve on? I guess I'll shut up now. With power restored to all 7 Super Emeralds, the Master Emerald begins to emit a brilliant pulsing light, literally aglow with happiness at the balance of power being restored on the island. And it's through this harmony of chaos energy that Sonic earns his Hyper form, the true pinnacle of chaos. Hypersonic pulses in all the colours of the emeralds that gave him this power, with brilliant sparks of light revolving around him at all times, and he is now so blisteringly fast that he leaves a trail of after images behind him as he moves. Dude can now even breathe underwater. You know, Sonic's one consistent weakness, his kryptonite, that shit's nothing to him anymore. But the most important addition to Hypersonic's arsenal is probably the Hyper Flash attack. This gives Sonic the ability to perform a second jump in the form of a mid-air dash, and when this attack is performed, a huge flash of light engulfs the entire area, and any on-screen badniks are instantly destroyed. It's weird. When I look back at this attack now, with the hindsight of the Adventure era lore, I often wonder to myself if this was actually an extremely basic form of chaos control, where Sonic has accidentally tapped into the power of the emeralds to relocate himself without understanding exactly how, or what he even did. Either way, somehow, Hypersonic surpasses the power of Super, And while it was a long 14 special stage trip to get here, there has never been any doubt in my mind that it was totally worth it. Even Tails, who was completely left out of the loop with nothing to show for collecting the 7 regular Chaos Emeralds, gets his very own super form after collecting the Super Emeralds. While super, Tails is followed by his own personal murder squad of chaos-powered flickies, who indiscriminately attack any on-screen enemies on sight. I always found the transfer of chaos energy here from Tails to the flickies really interesting, and it wouldn't be until the final boss in Sonic Heroes that we would get to see anything like this again. Tails is crazy overpowered in his super form, with his entourage making pretty much every boss in the game a cakewalk, as you can literally just stand still and let the murder fowl take them out. But with our first trip to Hidden Palace out of the way, we return to Mushroom Hill. As the name suggests, the central theme for this zone is its abundance of giant mushrooms. Most of these chunky fungi can be used to bounce yourself to higher ground, while others feature in small set pieces as parachutes. I absolutely love this zone. Everything from its aesthetic to the sheer amount of exploring on offer. But full disclosure, there are some slightly time-wasty gimmicks dotted around that can sometimes break the otherwise blue balls to the wall pace of the stage. Namely, these weird pulley machines you are sometimes forced to use in order to progress. They aren't entirely unlike some of the other gimmicks we've seen already, but similar to most people's complaints about the Carnival Night Barrel, it's literally just pressing a direction in time with an object, and no amount of skill or knowledge will make them go any faster or be any fun. But thankfully, these will be pretty much the only culprits slowing you down here, and aside from the 1 or 2 mandatory ones, are mostly avoidable. Otherwise, Mushroom Hill is paced really well. There are plenty of steep slopes, complemented by chains of loop-de-loops spread right throughout the stage. And if you fancy taking some time away from speed to scratch that explorer's itch, this zone is a vertical behemoth, and there is an absolute crap ton of special stages hidden in every nook and crevice. I mean, it's actually possible to get your hyperform before even leaving this zone. Now that's some serious incentive to stop and smell the flowers, or fungus. Mushroom Hill is in a funny position as levels in a Sonic game go, as it has to walk the tightrope of being the first zone in Sonic & Knuckles by itself, and also being the 7th zone in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. While easier than Launch Base, Mushroom Hill balances itself very well by leaning very heavily into the motto of exploration that we just discussed. The more well-hidden special stages can be tricky to reach as Sonic by himself, and some of them are hidden off the beaten track completely. Mushroom Hill is either a zone you will spend a lot of time in, or one you will speed through in the blink of an eye. And for me, that flexibility allows it to stand tall and proud beside all the other awesome zones in this game. Knuckles' unexpected lake trip after his embarrassment at Launch Base doesn't seem to have done much to improve his attitude, as safe behind a barrier, he activates a machine that shoots Sonic upwards in a gust of air. We are still in Mushroom Hill, but things look a bit different here. The healthy green colour has faded from all the vegetation, with most plants now a faded autumn colour. As Sonic moves further into the zone, the environment continues to change even further, as the grass and trees take on a more decayed grey look, and the mushrooms are now a sickly green. With a new sense of urgency, the level design opens up completely, and the pace is hiked up to the max, with Sonic blasting down steep hills and through chains of loop-de-loops to try and find whatever is doing this to the forest. As we reach the end, the answer becomes obvious. A strange satellite is embedded in the ground, emitting a strange beam into the air, and once Sonic destroys it, the forest is immediately restored to a healthy green, and Robotnik appears from underneath. With his season-altering satellite destroyed, it's time for the boss. While extremely easy, this boss continues the game's trend of changing things up a bit with these encounters, and we now have to give chase to Robotnik through a kind of mini-gauntlet, dodging spiked limbo bars at varying heights while avoiding his front-facing jets, landing hits whenever it's safe. Once defeated, Robotnik makes his escape on the flying battery, and with no other way of giving chase, Sonic has no choice but to quickly grab onto the giant airship as it takes off. I know I've probably harped on about this shit enough already, but these stage transitions were just sublime, and I'm just gonna keep saying it, so deal with it. Flying Battery was always one of my favourite zones. Something about that god-level music, coupled with the zone's insanely fast pace, just makes for some extremely satisfying gameplay, with plenty of great set pieces like the giant mesh cylinders and spinning propellers to keep you moving quickly. On paper, the theme for this zone is pretty much Winged Fortress from Sonic 2, but with one big exception. Flying Battery isn't a death trap, and while there are a couple of platforming sections above death pits, these are usually telegraphed pretty well, and you don't have to spend much of your time doing blind leaps of faith to progress. There are also some slower sections with crush hazards to navigate, quite a few in fact. And I know a lot of people feel strongly against the overuse of crush mechanics in these games, but unlike Marble Garden, I definitely wouldn't even consider the word cheap for the ones here. For the most part, you can time your way through these at high speed, with just the odd surprise here and there to try and catch you off guard, like the random badniks and unmagnetized spikes. But if you have good reaction times, or just do the stage a couple of times, these can all be navigated handily enough. A few well-timed spin dashes and you'll hardly even notice them. Another cool bit of world building is the animal capsules you'll find dotted all around the ship. But unlike the ones you've been finding at the end of each zone, none of these contain any animals. Some of them have rings inside, but for the most part, all you'll find inside are badniks. If this is the game's way of telling us that these capsules are what Robotnik uses to transform the captured animals into badniks, that's just awesome, and adds a real sense of importance to what Sonic has been doing all throughout the series so far. Rescuing animals from capsules. These portable roboticizers have been around since day one, and now we finally get to see what these strange devices are used for, and the fate you spare these innocent animals from, and represents yet another example of clever storytelling in this game. There are some, shall we say, quirks to some of the mechanics in this zone, with some nuances a lot of people just may not realize on their first time here, like using the ship's missiles to open a path, or this trap that serves as a switch to open a barrier. Nothing overly offensive, just a little poorly communicated. The mini-boss in this zone is yet another great example of the variety the bosses in this game offer. Disguised as an animal capsule, Gapsole needs to be tricked into hitting himself, as Sonic is unable to damage it in any way. When you stand on a switch on its head, the boss's eyes will soon begin to flash, and this is your cue to quickly move, as he's about to try and smash you with his spiked flail arm. If you're quick and clever, you can deploy the standard quit hitting yourself technique to great effect here, and sit back to enjoy watching this guy punch himself into the middle of next week. If you fail to figure out this strategy early, however, this boss can be a bit more dangerous, striking out at you even if you don't activate the switch. Act 2 sees us work our way even further into the bowels of this mammoth ship, and like Scrap Brain, Metropolis, or Oil Ocean, Flying Battery is another rare opportunity to get a glimpse behind the scenes at the inner workings of Robotnik's operations, as we see rows and rows of mass-produced animal containers housed in storage bays, and without a single word of dialogue, we now know Robotnik has been using the Flying Battery to get around the island to deploy these capsules, and if you haven't guessed by now, I absolutely love this sort of thing. And it probably goes a long way towards explaining my unconditional love for this game. A still background image in a stage actually spells out huge things about the story, and the villain's methods of carrying out his plans, and that's really cool. If the Winged Fortress vibes from this place have been too subtle up till now, don't worry. The game pretty much smacks you in the face with it for the first phase of the boss, with a fight that's pretty much the same as the Winged Fortress one, minus the spiked platforms. And you don't have to hit the laser at all this time. This is more of a run out the clock situation as the barriers slowly close in around you, which can be pretty nerve-wracking your first time. For a guy with over 300 IQ, and a valiant feminist to boot, you have to wonder how clever he really is sometimes, as after lasering his own ship to death, Sonic now has to give chase through the crumbling wreckage for a final showdown at the top. The game applies a pretty good anti-nuke defense here by putting a barrier between you and the boss. It doesn't do much to stop this tactic in bursts, but still, it just goes to show the team was thinking about the shortfalls in their boss mechanics, and on the first time, this technique is quite effective. The Flying Battery has well and truly had it now, and the ship is going down, fast. Sonic quickly sprints for the nearest exit and bursts out the door, falling into the unknown. Sandopolis gets a lot of hate from players, and I kinda understand where they're coming from. I mean, just looking at this place is enough to make you feel all clammy and sweaty, and all the stereotypical tropes people hate about these games, yeah, they're all here. 5 billion crush traps, slow pace dictated by stage mechanics, super long runtime, looping infinity slide. This place is like a school reunion for all the endlessly bashed Sonic mechanics, and it's just our luck every one of them RSVP'd. But I still really like this zone. In terms of atmosphere, Sandopolis is fantastic. On a visual level, constructed perfectly. As I said, you can literally feel the suffocating desert heat, and the level of detail in the environment is simply stunning. Beautifully lit foregrounds with cool shading effects, complete with pyramids and sand dunes in the richly detailed background. For a 16-bit console released in 1989, the devs squeezed a lot out of the hardware for this zone, and we can at least agree it looks great, right? As for the zone itself, as I said, it's one of, if not the longest in the game. You're never far away from quicksand, and there are a bunch of stop-start gimmicks ready to eat up ever-increasing amounts of your time. The worst offenders being the push blocks and the rappel ropes. Swinging on these ropes the first time is kinda cool, and the 3D effect applied to Sonic as he spins looks really great. But after the first time, the novelty quickly wears off, and it's just a huge waste of time. Luckily, they can be avoided for the most part, but when you do run into them by mistake, there's no way off before the bottom. The Scorp Badniks are also pretty badass, and I want to hate them, as they often try to hit you from off screen or trap you in a corner, but to be honest, I think that's just them doing their job well. Their placements are fairly deliberate, and mastering the insta-shield actually makes them a breeze. And listen, it's not all bad here in Sandopolis, and my love for this place does actually extend past just its aesthetics. There are some really cool loop-de-loop set pieces where Sonic does 2 loops in order to gain enough momentum to launch himself upwards. For the longest time, I could never figure out why I like this so much, but I think it might actually be because it always puts me in mind of this part of the Sonic CD intro, and anything that reminds me of the beautiful CD intro is an automatic win in my book. There are also plenty of cool sand slides and elasticated springs to help lift the pace of the zone, and the Guardian mini-boss you face, after a huge pyramid emerges from the sand, is a nice change from all the bosses we faced before. For the first time, it's not one of Robotnik's creations that we have to defeat, but an ancient remnant from the past that guards the pyramids of Sandopolis, another of the island's natural defenses. This is another boss that you can't really damage, and you instead have to either trick it into having a quicksand bath, or repeatedly knock it over until it falls in. That nice change I mentioned doesn't really extend past your first time fighting this guy. Yeah, subsequent playthroughs, you just gotta wait it out. Act 2 sees Sonic venture inside the pyramid, and it's in here that people's gripes with this zone really hit boiling point. This act goes on for quite a while, and with the pace constantly dictated by rising sand, looping slides, stressful time-based puzzles, and hordes of ghosts to manage with the annoying light switch mechanic, ghosts by the way, that represent every poor little 90s kid who got as far as this zone and gave up. Now the spirits of their dead self-esteem haunt this place forever, trying desperately to warn those foolish enough to try. Man, that's deep. A lot of people just want this place to be over, and while I know this zone well enough to enjoy it anyway, I can fully understand why most people just can't dig Sandopolis. After a significant amount of time, and another fight with Robotnik and his egg golem, some sweet mercy is granted to the weary, and the zone is over. Until Sonic randomly runs into a giant hole, falling as gracefully as a brick into the next zone. This guy is a walking disaster in this game. It's hard to imagine how things could get any worse. Never mind. Forget I said anything. Sonic falls deep into the earth and finds himself in the cavernous deeps of Lava Reef. If the name wasn't a big enough clue, this zone will be your lava level for today, and this place is busy in terms of enemies and hazards, and navigating it is a lot like I'd imagine walking across a minefield is like. You have worm guys, exploding guys, drilling guys, spiky guys, crush guys, fire shooty guys, lava guys. There is a lot to look out for, and narratively, there's a good reason for that. If you look carefully in the background, you can actually see the dormant death egg protruding from the mouth of the volcano. Robotnik has managed turning crashing here to his advantage, as he seems to have finally discovered what he's been looking for somewhere in the area. Robotnik has been hanging around this island like a bad smell, and no matter where Sonic goes, he continuously runs into either him or his creations, so it's safe to assume that there's something on this island that he's after. All the badniks, and most of the hazards in this zone, have some form of digging or explosive capabilities, and he has set all of these machines to work digging into the bedrock. Robotnik seems to be mining for something, and this isn't the first time we've seen him do this either, as he did the exact same thing in Marble Garden, but his operation here is much more extensive, and as a result, the structure of the caverns have been severely compromised, with the whole place now crumbling down around you. While obvious statement is obvious, the fire shield will be very useful here, and allows Sonic to avoid damage from any fire projectiles and from the lava itself. But you know what? despite the myriad of hazards, Lava Reef is actually a pretty fun zone, with plenty of high-speed set pieces and an awesome soundtrack to boot. After defeating the mini-boss, the resulting explosion seems to cause the surrounding lava to cool off, allowing Sonic to run across the lake of hardened magma to reach a crystallized section of the cavern. This whole area has a calming blue hue, which is in stark contrast to the fiery reds of Act 1. Maybe a weird parallel between the passionate reds of Knuckles and the calming blue of Sonic. Yeah, that's the level of gushing over this game I've descended to. Just deal with it. But be careful not to let the calming blue aura or the peaceful music, which on a side note, sounds oddly familiar, doesn't it, cause you to take your guard down. This act is as lethally defended as the first. Once we get out of the more cramped tunnels, we reach a more open cave system with some tighter, timed platforming sections to navigate. And in the background, we can see that we are now much closer to the slumbering Death Egg, still stuck in the ceiling above us. It's not long before we once again run into Big Papa Punch, who has now moved on to straight up murder as he punches a conveniently placed boulder right on top of Sonic, knocking him down the stairs and off the side of the platform. Wait. Hold up. You can punch boulders like Chris freaking Redfield, yet you can muster up nothing more than a love tap at launch base? What the fuck? I know. Need to build a bridge and get over it. After the fall, Sonic finds himself right below the Death Egg, and we arrive just in time to see it activate, as its eyes emit a huge flash of light. This whole section is just friggin' awesome, and even as a kid, when I seen that giant behemoth awaken in the background, I knew shit was about to go down. Seeing the Death Egg from up this close always stuck with me from the very first time I played this game, and the sheer sense of scale, it's just awesome. Say what you will about Robotnik, but he sure knows how to build big round things. After an auto-scrolling chase section where Robotnik rains missiles down on Sonic, we reach the bottom of the lava fall? Yep, that's a thing. I didn't just dumb make something up this time. Robotnik emerges from the boiling lake in his creatively named Hotmobile. Dude, don't get my hopes up like that. I had something very different in mind when I read that name. This boss is another where your approach to beating it is completely flipped on its head. You will quickly find there is no way for you to land any hits on Robotnik, as his Hotmobile is completely invulnerable to Sonic's attacks. More than just invulnerable, I'd say. Alright, I'll stop. The only way to beat this guy is to use his own mines against him, and carefully platform across the moving blocks, while the mines flow straight back into him. While a little repetitive, at least it's creative and requires a bit of thinking, as well as careful platforming. If you have the flame shield though, this boss is a piece of piss, and you'll walk straight over him with no issues at all. With Robotnik gone, the lava once again cools off, and Sonic can run across to the next zone. Sonic has now reached Hidden Palace Zone, the crystallized pillars in the background confirming that this is in fact the same place we discovered through the giant ring in Mushroom Hill. Hidden Palace is an extremely short zone. In fact, it barely even constitutes a zone at all. It's only one act long and exists primarily for narrative reasons. Not long after arriving, we come to an open chamber, where we can see the Death Egg still lodged in the ceiling, so it hasn't launched yet. In the next room, Sonic finally comes face to face with Knuckles. No more tricks, no more traps, and it doesn't look like he's gonna flee this time. The pair finally duke it out, and while this may not look very impressive to anyone seeing this for the first time now, this fight blew my tiny mind as a kid. This was the first time in the mainline series where you actually got to fight against another living, breathing creature, and while not a very difficult fight, it was still awesome to get to see Knuckles using all his abilities in a fight against Sonic. The game had built up to this moment perfectly, having Knuckles be a thorn in your side from the very beginning, to the point where you couldn't wait to get your hands on him. I used to purposely draw out this fight just to enjoy this moment for a bit longer. You only need to look at the giant mural in the background to see why Robotnik had such an easy time fooling Knuckles into believing Sonic was the bad guy. This ancient artwork seems to prophesize Sonic fighting against Robotnik in his super form to retrieve the Master Emerald. And with art being subjective, it's understandable that Knuckles might believe Sonic was stealing the Master Emerald, as opposed to simply stopping Robotnik from taking it. But again, without saying a word, this game has weaved a fantastic story, one of the many reasons why it's always been so special to me. And to dive even further down the rabbit hole that is this mural, and the story it tells, the Master Emerald's acceptance of Sonic now makes perfect sense. His arrival was predicted. Sonic's fight to save the island from Robotnik was foretold. And with the island's only guardian actually falling for Robotnik's lies, opening the door and inviting the enemy inside, the Master Emerald knew it had to turn to someone else to put things right, and Sonic, pure of heart and brave as they come, fit the prophecy perfectly, with the Master Emerald revealing secrets to him that it probably took Knuckles years to learn, even bestowing the full power of the Super Emeralds upon him. When the Master Emerald took the Chaos Emeralds from Sonic, he didn't try to resist. He knew there was something more going on here, events bigger than him, or anyone else for that matter. Sonic is pure-hearted good, and the Master Emerald knew this. With Sonic coming out on top against Knuckles, something strange starts happening, and the walls begin to strain and creak. When the pair move into the Emerald Chamber to investigate, Knuckles finally catches Robotnik with his hands in the cookie jar. Robotnik has made his play, and is now trying to escape with the Master Emerald. He spent all this time searching tirelessly for it to use as a power source for his Death Egg, and now that he's found it, he no longer has any need for Knuckles. Knuckles tries desperately to stop him from stealing it, but is only left with a bad electrocution headache for his troubles. As it starts to slowly dawn on Knuckles that Robotnik has been playing him for a fool this whole time, in desperation, he now turns to Sonic for help. Swallowing his pride, he beckons Sonic into another room, and the pair use a teleporter to give chase to Robotnik. Sky Sanctuary is a decomposing floating city, located adjacent to Angel Island. It is said that this place is sacred to the Echidna clan who used to call Angel Island home, and that as the only remaining member of this ancient guardian tribe, Knuckles is the only one permitted to step foot in this hallowed place. Which just goes to show the level of trust Knuckles has been forced to place in Sonic through sheer desperation. Knuckles was tricked so easily by this egg-shaped charlatan, and now his world is falling down around him, literally. We arrive just in time to catch a glimpse of the Death Egg as it bursts through the blanket of clouds surrounding Sky Sanctuary, and as it continues rising upwards, small shapes can be seen launching from the colossal space station, moving towards Sky Sanctuary. As the Death Egg moves out of view, Knuckles, still badly shaken from his encounter with Robotnik, barely manages jumping across the gap and activating a bridge for Sonic to cross. With no energy left, Knuckles can't go on any further. He tells Sonic to go on without him and stays behind to rest. Sky Sanctuary is a short zone consisting of just one act, which is a huge shame because this place is great fun, not to mention absolutely gorgeous. I would have loved to have gotten to see more of this place. Everything from the level design to the music really gives you that epic feeling of a penultimate act, while also conveying just how important and beautiful this place is. In its prime, you really get the sense that this place would have been truly something to behold, and the amount of potential for really cool lore for this place is just off the charts. But as things stand, Sonic now has to navigate his way up through this dilapidated, collapsing city in order to catch the Death Egg before it gets into orbit. As Sonic moves through the stage, we soon find out what the shapes we seen launching from the Death Egg were, as Egg Robos are now patrolling the zone in an attempt to intercept Sonic before he can reach the Death Egg. As we push upward through collapsing bridges and spinning podiums, we encounter a new and improved version of Mecha Sonic. It pilots Robotnik's Eggmobile as we take it on in two separate throwback fights. Fights that reference bosses from the previous two games. Yeah, like we needed to fight the Metropolis boss again, am I right? But once we reach the top of the zone, we finally get to experience this badass murderbot in all his glory, as we take him head on in a straight up fight. He slides on screen like a boss. Do you get it? Like a boss? Because he is a boss. Anyway, he destroys the teleporter we used to get here, our only means of escape. Which, when you think about it, is kinda creepy, like when the killer in a horror movie locks themselves in the same room as their victim. This guy fully intends for Sonic to die here. His design is just awesome, and was even adopted for his appearances in Sonic the Comic, where he was a serious ongoing threat. This fight is very similar to the silver version at the end of Sonic 2, with Mecha arguably displaying a bit more ability and dexterity. After the fight, it seems that either the removal of the Master Emerald from Angel Island, or the Death Egg's close proximity to Sky Sanctuary, has proven too much for this crumbling city to handle, as it starts to literally fall out of the sky. The floor suddenly gives way with Mecha falling along with it, and Sonic has to race for his life up the last standing tower to reach the Death Egg just in time. Robotnik's Death Egg. After spending a whole 1 2.5 games chasing it, it's finally time to take it down for good. Maybe. The space station seems to be largely hollow on the inside, with a large catwalk looping around the entire perimeter that connects to a large central control pillar. As a kid, it blew my tiny socks off the first time I made it here. Yeah, we got a small glimpse of the place in Sonic 2, but this is the whole enchilada, and it's time to pull up our big boy pants and explore this amazing feat of engineering. Across 2 full acts no less. Being the scrap brain or metropolis of this game, Death Egg can be pretty aggressive when it comes to its badniks and stage hazards. Most walls have mounted turrets, and these are often placed where you're most vulnerable. The 2 new badnik types introduced here are also much more aggressive than in previous zones, often attempting to catch you unaware from off screen, or patrolling areas where it can be hard to avoid them. There are also plenty of electrified floor panels to navigate, which I believe are the first and last examples of elemental immunity offered by the magnet shield in this game. Top all that off with some pretty harsh anti-gravity platforming and weightless puzzles, and you have the recipe for a pretty intense zone. But for the most part, I wouldn't really call any of this unfair. The stage design gets into a kind of rhythm where you can kinda get a sense of what's coming next as you begin to slowly get used to the zone. And I mean, come on, it's meant to be a bit hard. It's the last zone in the game. It's certainly not as bad as Scrap Brain or Metropolis, that's for sure. And if you do mess up, the save system's got your back. Hey, remember how I just got through telling you how fair this zone is and how it's not too difficult? Yeah, it's time to meet the one exception. The Red Eye mini-boss at the end of Act 1 is a total dick. He's pretty hard. Probably the first mini-boss in the game that can be genuinely described as difficult, if you don't have Super or Hypersonic. What? Oh, I just hit him and these pop? Oh god, they make little spike explosions? Why do I keep hitting him when they just make more spikes? Oh, thank fuck, he's dead. Oh, thank Jesus. What the fuck? Okay, he's risen, but we can do this. We did it before. Oh, sweet lord, the spinning. Jesus, just take me now. Show mercy to this little blue hedgehog. A laser too? After some time-wasty gimmicks that seem to prioritize spectacle over the player's time, and enough anti-gravity sections to choke an astronaut, we finally find Robotnik, tucked safely away behind a barrier as usual. The Death Ball is completely invulnerable to Sonic's attacks, thanks to the shield that rotates around itself to block attacks from any direction, forcing you instead to use the anti-gravity skills you've been practicing all through Act 2, and utilize the gravity elevators to use the boss's own bombs against him. While not entirely difficult, using the stage mechanics to change things up with this boss is a nice touch, and I just love how this game ramps up the power of Robotnik's machines, with him now creating stuff that Sonic can't actually damage by himself, forcing him to come up with other creative ways of overcoming these awesome creations. After the fight, Robotnik beats Sonic in a race, super casual, and jumps into his great Egg Robo-Mech. This dude is persistent, I'll give him that. This boss is visually pretty similar to the Death Egg robot at the end of Sonic 2, but much bigger, and maybe slightly closer related to the smaller Egg Robo models we encountered earlier in Sky Sanctuary. Walking on the exterior of the Death Egg, the mech chases Sonic around the screen, shaking the ground with each step. As a kid, I used to wonder if it was actually walking around on the planet's surface, since you could see it right there in the background, and that the robot was just that tall. I wasn't the brightest, but those would be some pretty badass stilts though, am I right? After avoiding being fingered to death, nope. After breaking off its fingers one by one, like an angry wet bandit, Phase 2 sees Robotnik change tact, and chase Sonic along the walkway from the left side of the screen. This is where things can get slightly tricky. Once you realize you have to boop its nose while avoiding the flames, revealing its Master Emerald powered chest laser, you've now found its weak spot. But revealing the laser will cause it to begin charging, and the resulting blast takes up a fairly large portion of the screen, requiring a perfectly timed jump to avoid it, leaving you with a pretty short window to get off some hits before having to dodge. It's difficult, but far from impossible. With the mech destroyed, the resulting explosion causes huge damage to the Death Egg itself, but somehow, Robotnik still isn't ready to give up yet. He uses his Eggmobile to grab the Master Emerald, and again tries to make his escape. Sonic attempts to give chase while the walkway falls away behind him, but all seems hopeless as the whole Death Egg explodes around him, and the screen fades to white. If you fail to attain Super or Hypersonic, or are playing as Tails, the game ends here, resulting in a less than perfect ending. Doomsday. I don't think I can do justice to the feeling of unlocking this place for the first time as a kid. A dramatic, time-pressured chase through outer space as Supersonic? Yes please! Where in the past, collecting all the emeralds and unlocking Supersonic may have just given you a nicer ending. Maybe a shot of him flying majestically through the air, with his tiny bird pals flying in tow, like Snow White with a Super Saiyan hairdo. But here, we witness the birth of the Supersonic final boss showdown, something that will become a series staple going forward. That all started here. With the ever-present danger of running out of rings and falling to his death, Sonic has to chase Robotnik through an asteroid belt before he escapes with the Master Emerald. During the chase, it's absolutely crucial that you collect as many rings as you possibly can, while dodging the barrage of missiles Robotnik fires back at you, as once you reach the boss, you only have the amount of time you manage bringing into the fight to beat him. Robotnik's Blue Destroyer will continue to launch homing missiles at you, supplemented by a constant spray of smaller projectiles. With the constant pressure of watching your rings tick ceaselessly and inevitably down, this fight can be quite nerve-wracking your first time, as you desperately try to figure out the tactics before your rings are gone. With no way of attacking the ship directly, you eventually figure out that the only way to damage it is to lead its own missiles into its head, a theme that has been well established in many of the previous boss fights. The sheer amount of projectiles can make this a little tricky, as hitting into the missiles will detonate them, causing you to lose valuable time and ammo, forcing you to wait for the boss to shoot more. But even when you eventually manage taking down this seriously tough machine, Robotnik is still not ready to give up, making his escape in a much more traditional Death Egg robot, and still carrying the Master Emerald. With your limited rings, you now have another robot to chase down and beat up before Sonic finally grabs the Master Emerald and starts his descent. Caught by Tails in the tornado, the pair return the Master Emerald to its rightful place on Angel Island, and start their journey back home. We get a shot of Knuckles beside the Master Emerald, watching Sonic and Tails with a huge sense of relief, and a great deal of appreciation as they fly away in the distance, ending Sonic's campaign. And somehow, we're only halfway through the story this game has to tell, as Knuckles' campaign takes place after Sonic's. How do we know this? The island is levitating in Knuckles' Angel Island background, and resting on the water in Sonic's. The Death Egg is missing in Launch Base for Knuckles, as it already took off in Sonic's. And the ghosts are present right from the beginning of Sandopolis Act 2, as Sonic has already released them. There are plenty of little details like this that tell us the order of events, if we look closely enough. And those flourishes of detail by Naka and his team really show just how strong their love for this game was, and the level of pride that they take in their work. Even with Robotnik sent packing, Knuckles is still not left alone in peace, as a rogue egg robo seems to have taken it upon itself to finish what its master started, stealing the Master Emerald. It ambushes Knuckles as he's taking a breather in Angel Island Zone, setting Knuckles on his own adventure to track down and destroy this final intruder before it can undo all of Sonic's hard work. Knuckles handles very similar to Sonic, but with a few big exceptions. His top speed and acceleration isn't quite as high as the Blue Blur, as you might expect, and he also can't jump as high, making a lot of the bosses he faces quite a bit harder than when using Sonic, especially as he doesn't have the insta-shield either. This can be exacerbated by the fact that the bosses are harder for Knuckles by default, as while he shares many of the same ones as Sonic, Knuckles basically gets the pinch mode versions of these encounters, with the bosses being a lot more aggressive, and even having extra attacks you didn't see as Sonic. This all adds to the idea that Knuckles is the game's hard mode. Most people will have been through the entire game as Sonic already, so this was the devs' way of adding a reason to play as Knuckles, and providing a bigger challenge for more seasoned players. This probably all sounds like Knuckles is inferior to Sonic, or even Tails, but believe me, nothing could be further from the truth. Knuckles is in a league of his own in terms of versatility, boasting new and unique abilities like gliding and climbing. Where Tails was great for vertical exploration, Knuckles displays mastery over any and all exploring. Holding down jump while in mid-air will see him glide at a fair pace through the air, and while he doesn't gain elevation, in fact he loses it over time, he moves so quickly that the loss of height is negligible. He can even change direction in mid-air, and when you combine his gliding with his ability to climb, there isn't many places this eager beaver can't reach. There's a reason he was given the Indiana Jones style hat guys. This guy is the treasure hunting king. And that tough guy attitude, that's not all just for show. Knuckles doesn't need to spin dash to destroy any of the game's breakable barriers. All he has to do is run at them, and they simply jump out of the way in fear. In a nutshell, Knuckles is the king of exploration, even getting his own super and hyper forms. So these exploration skills can be used to potentially get much earlier access to these forms than Sonic, as Knuckles is much better for hunting down the giant special stage rings hidden all over the island, especially in Mushroom Hill. While Knuckles goes through pretty much all of the same zones as Sonic, often he takes completely different paths through them. He can't reach Sonic's path at the end of Angel Island Act 1, as trying to do so sees him ass pound the boulders, putting the ledge above out of reach. But here's the best part. all those little oddities we found when playing as Sonic, all those barriers that clearly had something to hide, most of us tearing our hair out, wondering just how the hell we get past them. These can all be accessed with Knuckles. There are whole new sections of the zones for us to explore, and that, to this day, is hands down one of the most awesome things in gaming I've ever seen. These days, we are spoiled by technology, and pretty much anything is actually possible. But back in '94, this shit had no business being this amazing. This was technical wizardry, and the memories of how truly blown away I was as a kid will always stay with me. These alternate routes do two things really well. Give the player a perfectly tuned sandbox for mastering Knuckles' abilities. This underground section, for example, is great for practicing climbing and judging your gliding. Same with these sprawling rows of spikes in Hydro City. And also for hammering home the fact that Knuckles is a lifelong guardian of this island, and he knows this place inside and out, explaining how even though he's not as fast as Sonic, he could still get around much quicker and easily get the jump on him. Knuckles takes the insider track through pretty much the entire game, revealing parts of the zones never seen before by the player. He pretty much bypasses Carnival Night completely, with both acts taking around a minute and no Act 2 boss to face. I especially loved Act 2 of Launch Base, where we got to see some truly different parts of the zone, with Knuckles taking a path underneath the lake, possibly showing how he cut Sonic off here on his run. And Act 2 of Lava Reef sees him take another shortcut straight into Hidden Palace, with a straight run to the Sky Sanctuary teleporter. Sky Sanctuary is the final zone with Knuckles, and consists of a final showdown with Mecha Sonic, who apparently survived its fall after fighting Sonic. And that moment where Knuckles tricks Mecha into destroying the Egg Robo? So satisfying. And a much deserved end after being such a pain in the ass. Knuckles now has to face off one-on-one against Mecha, while Angel Island sways precariously in the background. If you watch it over time, you'll notice it's actually starting to fall lower and lower. Another really simple yet awesome detail. We start off with a quick warm-up fight with Mecha, pretty much a carbon copy of his fight with Sonic. But it's after beating him here that things really move up a gear. After feigning defeat, Mecha takes a chance to jet past Knuckles and hop on top of the stolen Master Emerald. Somehow, it's able to absorb power directly from the Master Emerald, attaining its very own super form. The implications of this are actually quite astounding when you think about it. Robotnik has built something that not only can siphon energy from the Master Emerald, but can use that energy to attain a super form. A non-organic life form that can utilize chaos energy and turn super. That's just awesome. As you'd expect, Knuckles can't damage Mecha when super, but it soon becomes obvious that Mecha's super form, while awesome, is slightly flawed, and it can't maintain it for very long before having to return to the Master Emerald to power up again. And it's this moment of weakness between charges where Knuckles can land a few hits before having to return to dodging his super attacks. Knuckles actually manages to take down Mecha even with its super form, an incredible redemption for this naive but noble guardian. And even as the last remaining sections of Sky Sanctuary crumble all around him in a fiery explosion, Knuckles is content in the fact that he and he alone saved his island this time, and safe in the knowledge that the Master Emerald won't fall into the hands of evil, is willing to accept his fate. But luckily, with some of that patented great timing by Sonic, Knuckles and the Master Emerald are caught in mid-air by the tornado, and Sonic returns them once again to Angel Island, which begins its ascent back to the clouds, ending the story of Knuckles. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is probably my favourite Sonic game of all time. Scratch that, one of my favourite games of all time. And I hope that in this video, as well as part 1, I did a halfway decent job at justifying why I feel so strongly about it. The Sonic series has had its fair share of ups and downs over the years, and in more recent years, probably more downs than ups. But one of the reasons I'll always love revisiting Sonic 3 and Knuckles is because it brings me back to a time where the series was at the top of its game, where we got multiple titles in rapid succession, and they were all awesome. Some more than others, but still awesome. Good Sonic games are built around 3 pillars: speed, platforming, and exploration. And in my opinion, Sonic 3 and Knuckles struck the perfect balance. And you now have 3 different characters, all with completely different abilities that can explore each and every zone in completely different ways, with self-expression always a big part of how you play. No one way is the right way, and this game is a proud supporter of you do you. And even with all these new abilities, you still play the game with the D-pad and a single action button. That philosophy is never betrayed. No matter how elaborate the gameplay gets, and no matter which character you choose, it always feels like you're playing a Sonic game. They all fit seamlessly into the formula, and it never ceases to amaze me how friggin' natural the devs made them all feel. It somehow feels like the game was built specifically for each of them, and to some extent, that's probably because it was. The bosses, for the most part, offer far more variety than in any of the previous games, and an effort is always made to switch up the mechanics a bit and force the player to think a bit more. As for the story, without a single word of text or dialogue, this game makes huge strides in storytelling compared to its predecessors. Scratch that, compared to most games of its time. And through lock-on technology and big pushes in universe expansion and series continuity, this game truly laid the foundations for all the awesome things to come in the series. And look, I'm by no means saying that this game is objectively perfect. There are definitely some smaller pain points that in a perfect world wouldn't exist. Marble Garden was a bit boring, and relied a bit too heavily on crush deaths and gimmicky set pieces to make itself stand out. Carnival Night and Sandopolis were a bit too long for most people's tastes, with both featuring some poorly communicated set pieces, and some of the game's other gimmicks can be a bit annoying too, and sometimes feel like they're only there to waste your time, like the ring transporters in the Death Egg. But to be honest, these problems are rare, and do very little to put me off the game in any way. And for me, this game is still the closest to perfection any Sonic game has reached. Others have come so very close, but I still think that this one stands above the rest. It's awesome that Sega have finally worked around the legal roadblocks that were preventing them from re-releasing this game. And when Origins finally does drop, I'll happily cover this and all the other games in the collection on the channel again. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I know it ran super long. Script got away from me a little bit, but I just have so much to say about this game. If you stuck around this long, thank you. You are awesome, and I'm glad you enjoyed the content enough to stick around with me till the end. Let me know your thoughts on anything and everything Sonic 3 and Knuckles in the comments below. Special memories, favorite parts, funny stories, thoughts on the video. I want to hear them all in the comments, so please, do speak your mind. If you enjoy this type of content and want to see more like it from me, please make sure to like, subscribe, and do things to that bell icon to be notified when I release more. This really helps the channel, and all of your support is seriously appreciated. Anyway, a big thank you again for watching, and as always guys, take care.